This Notebook LM video examines how Pseudo-Dionysius' writings unified disparate concepts about angels into a cohesive framework that influenced Christian thought. The 9 orders form 3 triads. The first, closest to God, contemplates him directly, the second governs the cosmic order, and the third conveys the divine will to humanity.
You know, when you think of angels, the choirs, the different ranks, seraphim, cherubim, the whole shebang, where did all that actually come from? Well, for over 1,000 years, our entire picture of heaven wasn't pieced together from a bunch of different sources. Nope, it came from one single, unbelievably powerful book. So today, we're going to unpack the text that literally gave us heaven's blueprint.
So let's just start with the big question. How are the angels organized? Is it just a big, beautiful, chaotic cloud of wings and halos up there? Or is there a system, a real structure to the heavens? It's a question that artists and theologians have been fascinated with for centuries.
And for more than 1,000 years, one book, and pretty much only one book, held the definitive answer. Before this text came along, ideas were kind of scattered all over the place. But after it was published, bam! A clear, detailed structure just took over Western thought, art, and theology. It was nothing short of a cultural supernova.
Okay, so to really get why this book had so much authority, we first have to understand the man who claimed to have written it. And this is where the story gets really fascinating. The author said his name was Dionysius the Areopagite. Now, you gotta understand, this wasn't just some random name he pulled out of a hat. This guy's actually mentioned in the Bible. He was a judge on Athens' high court, and, get this, he was supposedly converted to Christianity directly by St. Paul himself. That claim put the author right at ground zero of early Christianity, giving his words an absolutely massive amount of weight.
And just look at this timeline they laid out. It's perfectly designed to build that authority. According to the text, he witnessed the strange darkness of the crucifixion, he was converted by Paul, he was literally standing there with the apostles at the Virgin Mary's funeral rites. He was supposedly writing to figures like Timothy and St. John. You see what's happening, right? The claim isn't just that he's reporting on history. The claim is that he was there. He was an eyewitness. And for centuries, people completely bought it. It was just the accepted truth. I love this quote from the book's 1894 translator, Reverend John Parker. He just says it flat out. These are the genuine works of a direct disciple of St. Paul. Believing that was absolutely crucial to why the book's ideas were treated as, well, basically gospel truth.
So, what did this supposed eyewitness actually have to say about the heavens? Let's get to the real heart of his vision, the structure itself.
The central concept is hierarchy. But, and this is super important, for Dionysius, this wasn't just some boring org chart, a static chain of command. No, he defined it as this dynamic, sacred process. It's like an energy that's always flowing with one single goal, for every being in creation to become as one with God as possible. So how does that happen? Well, it's a 3-step journey. First, there's purification, which is all about being cleansed and getting rid of ignorance. Second is illumination, being filled with divine light and understanding. And third is perfection, being brought into the deepest sacred knowledge. And this process applies to everyone and everything in the hierarchy, from the lowest angel right up to the very highest.
And here it is, the blueprint of heaven. Dionysius organized the 9 angelic orders into 3 triads or tiers. The first, highest triad, they just contemplate God directly. They have the front row seats. The second triad is all about governance. They're the cosmic managers. And that third triad's job is communication. They're the ones who pass God's will down to humanity. The key idea is that this divine light flows from the very top, and it gets translated and passed down through each tier until it finally reaches us.
I mean, this structure was absolutely revolutionary. But as time went on, scholars started looking a little closer at the text, and a historical puzzle started to emerge around its author. The big question became, if this was truly written by a first-century convert of St. Paul, why did some of the details in the text seem, well, a little out of time?
Well, the skeptics pointed to a couple things. The book describes church rituals in a way that some scholars felt belonged to a much later century. Others found the author's tone, like calling Bishop Timothy "my son," to be a little too familiar, maybe even unbecoming for the historical period he claimed to be in. These kinds of details started to create cracks in the foundation of that first-century identity. But wow, the work's defenders were passionate. That 1894 translator, for example, dismisses this modern skepticism forcefully. He appeals to all rational men, suggesting that to doubt the writings is basically to question the good sense and learning of the modern West. I mean, that's a fiery defense of a long-held tradition.
But here's the crazy part. At the end of the day, the debate, it almost doesn't matter. And that's maybe the most important takeaway here. Whether it was written in the 1st century or the 5th, the argument over the author's real identity doesn't diminish the book's absolutely staggering influence.
The ideas themselves they took on a life of their own. The vision of the 9 angelic choirs was so clear, so complete, that it just became the definitive model, period.
And who did it inspire? Oh, just a few minor figures you might have heard of. Theologians like St. Thomas Aquinas, poets like Dante Alighieri, who literally structured his Paradiso around this hierarchy, and John Milton in Paradise Lost. These are absolute pillars of Western culture, and they all drew from this one source.
So the bottom line is this. From the stained glass windows of medieval cathedrals to the epic poems of the Renaissance, the way we visualize heaven and its inhabitants was profoundly shaped by this single work. Its ideas simply became more powerful than the identity of its author. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Does an idea's ultimate power and influence really depend on the name attached to it? Or can a powerful vision transcend its own origins? It's a question that the incredible story of this book really forces us to ask.